History is full of complicated figures, but few changed the world as violently as Adolf Hitler. His rise turned an entire nation into a machine built on fear, control, and destruction. And in tonight's story, we follow how one man's decisions led to some of the gravest crimes in modern history. This is not just a history lesson. It's a look inside the system he built and how that system hurt millions. When Hitler took power, the transformation was fast, almost too fast to notice. Newspapers disappeared, opposition parties vanished, people were discouraged from asking questions. Suddenly, neighbors were afraid to speak openly because the Gestapo, the secret police, could arrest anyone without explanation. At the same time, laws were introduced that slowly isolated Jewish citizens and many others. The most infamous were the Nuremberg laws, which removed basic rights and separated people from society. This wasn't random cruelty. Hitler was preparing a structure where the government, the police, and the military worked together toward one goal. That goal became clearer with time. In 1939, when the war began, the system expanded beyond Germany's borders. In Poland and other occupied countries, teachers, doctors, and community leaders were arrested. Towns were controlled by strict rules, and entire families were pushed from their homes. Many people tried to resist, but the punishment was harsh, and often entire communities suffered for the actions of a few. Hitler wanted full control, not just of land, but of people's identities, their culture, even their daily lives. As the occupation spread, Hitler ordered the creation of ghettos, sections of cities sealed off with walls. The largest one was in Warsaw. People were forced into tiny, overcrowded spaces with far too little food or medicine. Many parents skipped meals so their children could eat. Some tried to smuggle food through cracks in the walls despite the risks. Inside these ghettos, the world outside felt distant, and the future felt uncertain. Hitler's government designed these places to break people slowly, physically, emotionally, and socially. Next came something even more immense, a widespread system of camps across Europe. At first, these places were used for political prisoners, people who opposed the regime or spoke out. But over time, more and more groups were forced into the camps. Jewish families, Roma people, disabled individuals, and many others. Daily life was exhausting. Work hours were long. Food was scarce, and conditions were intentionally harsh. Factories and construction companies used prisoners as forced labor. The goal wasn't to rehabilitate or reform. It was to use people until they could no longer continue. In 1941, Hitler launched the invasion of the Soviet Union, and with it, the crimes escalated dramatically. Special units followed the army with orders to target entire communities. Villages were emptied. Civilians were displaced or worse. Millions of prisoners of war were taken, but they weren't treated according to international rules. Food was withheld, shelter was minimal, and medical care was nearly non-existent. This wasn't the chaos of war. It was the result of policies crafted at the top of Hitler's command. Another dark chapter came from the misuse of science and medicine. Some doctors aligned with the regime began performing unethical experiments on prisoners, studying disease, endurance, and procedures without consent. Many victims were children or disabled individuals. Hitler's regime justified these actions through ideology, an ideology that placed value on some lives while dismissing others entirely. It was a betrayal of science and humanity. As the war grew costly, Hitler's government turned to forced labor on a massive scale. People from occupied countries were captured and sent to work in factories, mines, farms, and construction sites. German industry relied heavily on this labor, and businesses cooperated closely with the government to keep the system running. For millions, daily survival depended on luck, endurance, and hope. By 1945, the war was collapsing around Hitler. Instead of trying to save what remained, he ordered the destruction of Germany's own infrastructure, bridges, factories, even vital utilities. His final decisions showed how little he cared for the country he once claimed to rescue. When his rule ended, the world began documenting what had truly happened, the policies, the orders, and the tragedies caused by his leadership. Hitler's story is a reminder of how dangerous unchecked power can be, and how a system built on fear and discrimination can escalate into unimaginable harm. By understanding this history, we remember the importance of protecting human rights and making sure leaders are held accountable before it's too late. Today, we examined the Adolf Hitler's crimes. For more videos like this, keep connected with Stories of Criminal World.